Hey class, today we will be talking about ecological succession. Okay, we'll be getting into the ecosystem. We will talk about, you will create your own ecosystem later on in class, which will be fun. We'll talk about primary succession, secondary succession, how ecosystem thrives, and we'll just dive deeper into that now. Key terms that we have today. The first key term is ecological succession. This is the process by which the mix of a species and habitat in an area changes over time. The increase in population in animals and in plants of all the species that are involved. Okay, plants dying off, extinct, endangered, things of that nature. Next, we have the keystone species. This is a species on which other species in an ecosystem largely depend. If this species were removed, the ecosystem would change drastically. This is the beginning, the start. Uh, they they are the main reason behind the ecosystem and how it thrives. Okay, if that species is taken out, then certain plants may die, which result in animals that depend on those plants dying, and which animals depend on those animals, they die. Okay, the keystone species is which alters everything. An invasive species is an organism that is not indigenous or native to a particular area. Invasive species are ones can be humans. Okay, humans who go on these hunting trips to Africa to kill elephants, to kill rhinos, which is illegal, but you still see it posted that these people do that. They're not native to the area. They can harm the species. They can harm the environment, resulting in endangered species. All right, next we have population density. That's the concentration of individuals within a species in a specific geographic location. I'm supposed to say location, not locale. This is all the individuals that is within this environment. Okay, your tigers, lions, bears, when you hear that in our environment, when you walk into the woods in Alabama, where you see pine trees, oak trees, you see cedar trees, deer, turkeys. This was the population of all those things within the area. All right, we have three more key terms on this page. We have habitat. This is a place where an organism makes its home, where the organism lives. It's self-explanatory. Next, we have the logistic growth. This is when a population's per capita growth rate decreases as population size approaches a maximum because of limited resources. Basically, what that means is if plant A is the keystone species, and there's only so much of plant A in the environment and in the ecosystem, as more animals are born and as more who depend or more species that depend on that plant are born, well, that plant A is not growing. So if it's not growing anymore, there's very limited food or resources for those animals. So their population rate slowly declines. It does not grow. It's not necessarily saying that more are dying off. It is saying that they are not growing at the rate they were growing in the beginning. Next, we have exponential growth. This is the unrestricted growth of a population of organisms occurring when resources are unlimited. This is an exponential growth. That's what unrestricted exponential grows quickly, grows fast. It's not slowing down. This is when resources are everywhere. This would be an example of the population you see in the world today, where there was a huge point in the world where populations continue to grow and grow and grow. People are living longer. That's because resources are became more unlimited with trade going across different countries. You get the food you needed, the medicine you needed, doctors, resources were always there, which resulted in this exponential growth. Examples of ecological succession: we have primary succession and secondary succession. We will talk about primary succession first. This is when new land is created. That is from the beginning, is what that means. Once a volcano is erupted and destroyed an environment, when there is fresh rock, fresh soil on the ground, that is when primary succession begins. Or another example I listed is a glacier exposing fresh soil. As glaciers move, they leave behind soil that has nothing on it. Okay, the organisms must start from the beginning to grow this habitat. Your first organisms are your pioneer species. Your pioneer species are what starts it off. Okay, it's the beginning. That's your lichens. Okay, that's how before something you have to have a primary species or a pioneer species there first before all your secondary species can begin. Once the lichens have formed, then you have small plants who can feed off them and continue to grow, get nutrients from the soil and things like that. This is all your very small plants who can tolerate some shade. And then next you have your grass and your perennials. Again, these are your pioneer species as well. Small grasses who need sunlight, who need the nutrition from the soil, who can feed off that, but they can also tolerate the shade. Next, we have our intermediate species, which includes your shrubs and pine trees. Things are getting bigger now. Pine trees don't need as much sunlight as what the final what other trees will need, as well as shrubs. But these are bigger than the grass, bigger than the perennials, bigger than the lichens. Things are beginning to grow. These are the intermediate species. And finally, when the climax community has been reached, we have all the previous species that we just talked about, along with your shade tolerant trees, which means they need sunlight. They need to grow so tall that they're above everything else. These are your hickories, your oaks, your trees, and other plants like that. We have a picture of a primary succession. Start from the beginning. Like I said, it goes from your lichens to your small annual plants, your grasses and perennials. Then you have your grasses, your shrubs, and trees such as your pines. And then you have your oak and hickory trees, the things that need the sunlight in the climax community. All right, examples of ecological succession. Continued, we have the secondary succession. Okay, this is when primary succession has already been through, climax community is there, and then a natural disaster or something occurs. Okay, destroying all of the all of what was already there. Okay, that is was secondary succession. All right, once the climax community has been altered or destroyed, it starts over the pioneer species and begins your primary succession. So again, you have our picture. Before primary succession can begin, your secondary succession is what destroys it. So secondary succession is destroying, and then you go through the same process as the primary succession was. All right, the assignment that you're going to have, you're going to split into groups of 3 or 4, no less than 3, no more than 4. If we have a problem, I can put you into groups yourselves, and we can have that worked out. We can get 3 or 4 in a group. All right, next I need every group to grab a Chromebook and log into one of your Schoology accounts. You will see a link titled Eco Builder. You must click on that Eco Builder app and you'll create a username and password through that site. Over the next few days, you will get to build your own ecosystem. Okay, the first thing that you're going to have to do today, though, is you're going to have to complete learning levels. You cannot start building your own ecosystem until you learn how to do those things. The app will show you instructions on how to do that. And over the next few days, you will complete the research world portion. That's on the app. That's the second part, and you will be able to develop your own ecosystem. You'll be able to control the size of the plants, the size of the animals, making sure in order that they don't go extinct or they're endangered. If that happens, you will have to add either a different type of plant or a different type of animal, either feeding off one or the other into the ecosystem, change the weight of that so your ecosystem can thrive and create a climax community. And finally, you'll have to, the final part of the assignment is you on your notes, I want you to identify in your ecosystem, everybody's will be different. What is your primary species? What is your intermediate species? Your keystone species? What has to be there? Your keystone species, what need to be there? If you remove them, will everything else die or become endangered? And which type of growth curves? Do you have exponential or logistic growth? The last part, your internet safety. Be careful not to use common passwords that you would use for other sites or share personal information with the site. Legal use. If you use a third-party site to help you complete the ecosystem other than me, be sure to cite it so you're not plagiarizing. Okay. You reference use copyright. And then lastly, no cheating off other groups. Don't and be courteous to your people in your group as well as other groups. All right, with that, let's get started. Grab a Chromebook.